so many things about the idea of food policy. And what we realize is that information is a big part of it. And that the more people, the more voices we can get, we realize that this is actually a big public issue. It's not just something that takes place at the Capitol. It's not just something that takes place on the farm.
Right.
That it's an everyday issue for people. What would you say, as someone who's worked in the policy realm and then in the private sector, and say, how can we make this, people realize this is a household issue?
Well, I think if you were to ask me what the most significant force is in food and agriculture today, it's the consumer. So the power of the consumer to decide what they want to buy, where it's made, how safe it is, how it's processed, what ingredients contained therein, that would have been something that virtually no consumer would have really demanded 30 years ago. And today that's a growing indicator of how people care about their food. And if you were asking me today, who is the most important force in agriculture and food, I'd probably say Walmart. I wouldn't say Congress, and I wouldn't say necessarily the farmers. I'd probably say the company that sells about 24% of the food in the United States.
So I have to say I agree with you, because at the end of the day, influencers are important, people who have access to the biggest audiences. We've heard from a couple people, former First Lady Michelle Obama helped to bring the idea of celebrity to the idea that eating healthy can be fun, it can be cool, growing your own food can be fun, it can be cool. What do you think about that? And as someone who formerly worked in the motion picture world, what do you think about that as saying that the more messengers we have that take this idea that this is something that is important, that it'll be something that more people will help to try to solve?
You know, it's funny. Napoleon once said that war is too important to be left to the generals. And it's a little bit true in food and agriculture. I mean, every segment's important. Farmers are important, ranchers are important, consumers are important, grocery chains are important, the medical community is important, our ecological system's important. But there is no one person and no one entity dominating this field anymore. That's why we're in such different times today than we were certainly after the Second World War, where farm and agriculture policy was largely dominated by Congress and by production agriculture out in the country. They're still important, but they're not the only force.
All right, so we've come through a pretty tense election. We're heading into a new direction with a new administration at the front. Partisanship has to, at some point, part a little bit on how we're going to start tackling these issues. What hope would you have for the Department of Agriculture and some of the other entities in the government to say, where are we headed in food and agricultural policy?
I think you're going to see less focus on what Congress does in the next farm bill as the arbiter of what food and agriculture is going to look like. You're still going to have a farm bill. It's still going to be important. It's probably going to be more risk-oriented than it's actually production-oriented. But I think there's going to be more concern about health, about nutrition, about soil health, about environmental issues, and about nutrition. Especially with our epidemic of type 2 diabetes in this world. And the trick will be is to bring people together, bring farmers together with consumers, bring healthcare people together with the research community. And frankly, one of the nice things about food and agriculture, it's actually much less partisan than most other things. I mean, all you need to do is watch the confirmations of the Secretary of Education and the Secretary of the Treasury. Of course, we didn't have a Secretary of Agriculture designate until just a few days ago, but that's going to be far less controversial than these other positions are.
There was one takeaway that you want everyone to have from your time here today, and one message you leave everyone with, what would that be?
I'd say that the question is the future of agriculture, the future of food. I would say the future is good. It's great. The economic opportunities are great. And the social opportunities are great, and it's going to take a lot of innovation and a lot of technology and a lot of consumer power, but we're in a business, food and agriculture, which is a positive business.